This is the Cheat Codes Podcast with your host, Thomas Dockstader.
So, Doyle, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, look, I've known you my whole life.
Yeah.
You're my brother, older brother.
Yeah.
We grew up together and got into a lot of stuff. And yeah, I think one of the main reasons that I want to bring you on today is I think that powerful stories of like where people have been and what they've been through and where they are now, that's kind of the drive of my whole podcast, is like helping people hear these incredible stories. And, you know, I wanted to kind of bring you on and have you tell us like a lot about what's happened to you in your life, because it's pretty freaking incredible. And in my mind, it's like, it needs to be shared, right? Because I think there's a lot of different groups that can find value in, what you went through.
I think that it helps people who may be in the pit right now or struggling right this minute to see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel for people that may not think there's any hope at all. Like, you know, they say to themselves, this is my circumstances, this is my life, this is basically what the hand that I was dealt, and I can't really get out of this. Whether they're stuck in with drugs or alcoholism or any other kind of vice. It doesn't even necessarily have to be drugs or alcohol. There could be sexual vices. There could be tons of different Netflix, playing video games too much, not wanting to work.
It's an excess of anything, really.
An excess of anything, yeah. And I think that that's probably one of the most valuable things that I've learned is balance in my life. Right. And that's probably given me the most benefit out of anything, is learning how to balance all the things together.
So, so let's back up. Like so I want to help people I know your stories, right?
Right.
But like, I want to help people understand. So you and I, we grew up in the FLDS. That's what we were born into, the FLDS religion, right?
Yeah, not by choice.
born into.
Right.
Yeah.
We were raised in that from babies.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that's a cult in Utah, most famously run by Warren Jeffs, right? He was our principal in school. We went to a special school for the polygamous children called Alta Academy.
Yep.
And, what's funny is I remember before I even started going to school, you're about 5 years older than me.
Yeah.
And so I remember before I even started going to school, you were getting in trouble at school.
Definitely.
So
I was getting in trouble from the inception. Going back that far, I'm 46 years old, so it's a ways back. And obviously I've had some, trauma throughout the life. I've had a few concussions and, been unconscious and sedated, and a bunch of other things have happened throughout my lifetime, which has not made my memory the best. But I do remember school. It was difficult for me because I didn't feel like I belonged there at all. Like, I always felt like so out of place. Like, it never just like set into me, even from a very, very young age, even really young, like 5, 6. I just knew it wasn't my path. And for whatever reason, I think I've always had this like gene to like buck the system and fight against the machine or whatever. And,
authority,
authority in general. I never I don't want to say that I'm against authority. I'm just saying back then when I was younger, I was against that authority.
Right.
Because it didn't resonate with me.
Well, and rightly so, honestly, right?
Right.
Like, there was a bad vibe there.
It was a bad vibe.
And the thing is, as children don't understand their emotions, and they know something's off or weird.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is necessarily. And so we try to get out of it, and we try to get away from it in certain ways, right?
Right.
And so what I remember is when you were about 12 or 13, you got pulled out of that school, pulled out. I don't know what it was. I was too young to recall.
Yeah.
But you got pulled out and you went to regular public school, which was kind of unheard of for us in that religion, right? Like you went to regular public school.
Yep. There was a transitionary period there. I mean, there's some things there's some timeline there that we're skipping. The school, Warren Jeffs was directly involved with me very heavily when I was young. He was the principal at the time. And I'll tell you, when we had to have those like morning meetings and he would be preaching to all the kids in the school, we started it early in the morning, like I can't remember, it was 7:30 or 8 o'clock. and then he would give like a sermon, and then you would go to your classes after that. I'm telling you, every single time I was sitting through, it was like my skin was peeling off of me, because the way he spoke, his lisp, his just creepy nature, and everybody would just be so entranced with him. And I would just sit there and look at them like they're all crazy. And I just felt like I was crazy. Like, why am I here? Like, why am I doing this? Obviously, I'm a child. I have nowhere to go. I don't have any other options to take. So I would choose the form of acting out. I remember probably the time that you're talking about there where I did get kicked out. I wrote F-U-C-K on the bathroom window with soap. I just thought that was going to be, no one would know it was me, but for some reason everyone knew it was me. And I immediately got chastised by Mr. Warren Jeffs, and he spanked me with a ruler, which at the time was no big deal. Did it hurt? Not really. It was more about the humiliation of it, because he kind of did it publicly in front of the other kids and things like that. It was kind of like a statement type of thing from what I remember. I had good friends that, David Jeffs, my best friend that took his life when he was 29. And there, as you know, a lot of all those brothers have,
Well, yeah, you make a great point, and this is something I'll dig into a lot on this podcast, but I think, I've had suicidal issues. We know a lot of people who have, especially from that religion. I know dozens and dozens of people who have killed themselves that grew up in that religion. So that's just that's good to know, right?
Yeah.
But,
well, I think I was kind of tied a little bit, because David, I had friends there, so I did feel kind of connected to them. And we'd play kickball, sports. The school was big into sports, and we would always play sports. So that was a good camaraderie. I grew up loving sports, basketball with Dad. We always played sports. We were always watching sports. That was something that we actually got to do. That was, we got to watch the TV and watch sports and things like that. And when you say these kind of things to people that may not be aware of this, it's pretty shocking, because we had very limited access to the outside world. Our bubble was the bubble, and I think that was the part about it that made me the most caged feeling, is because I wanted to spread my wings. I've always been creative. I was always drawing. I was always I've always been into history, and English was my favorite, and all these things that I really loved, but I didn't have like a vehicle to be myself, because it didn't necessarily line up with the religion itself.
Right.
So yeah.
So you have so much to cover. I want to get to some key points here. So you spent how many years in prison total?
20
years in prison. So you're 46. You spent a total of 20 years in prison, and that was over.
It was over about.
Was it 4 stints?
It was. Let's see. It was five or six. Well, it was 5 actually.
5,
but it was 6 total.
And the longest one was.
The last one was 10 years straight.
10 years straight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reason I bring that up is see, we're trying to build a story here, right?
Yeah.
We had some struggles in childhood, right? And you specifically were like, man, I just don't feel that this works for me. And even at a very young age, most kids don't do that.
Well, I can give like a fork in the road, if you'll say. Was 12 years old. So we kind of warped forward a little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't really have too much trauma in the school or any kind of stuff like that. It wasn't too big of a deal. No fights or anything like that. Nothing big deal. But I went to my very first priesthood meeting with Dad. And that was Warren Jeffs, Rule Jeffs, his dad, who was the prophet at the time. He was the principal. My dad, our dad, and then I think Uncle James was there, and I think David's dad, Ward Jeffs, were the elders. So they all blessed me and put their hands on my head. But I'm telling you, this is what happened. It was a changing life moment for me. Is they all had their hands on my head, and they were giving me the blessing to get the priesthood or whatever at 12-year-old, like you're supposed to. But Warren Jeff's hands on my body literally made me feel like a demon was touching me.
Oh my gosh.
I can't explain. It was like an out-of-body experience. I literally felt like a devil was touching me. Like it was the most clammy, cold, just wrong feeling. And then after the meeting, we went home and Dad wanted to like talk to me about it and see how I felt and all that kind of stuff. This was a really changing moment in my life. I told my dad, I said right then and there, I said, I'm never going back to that again, ever. Wow. And he told me right in that moment that I'm not his son anymore.
Jeez, that's tough, man.
So that started the trigger point. I think actually there was some violence involved here. Okay. I know Dad like punched me and bounced my head off the wall, like in the basement. Yeah. And Mom got all mad and she tripped out. I can't remember the chain of events exactly, but it had something to do with priesthood meeting, and it was a big kerfuffle. The house was in an uproar.
I remember very clearly two times. I remember one time you got the belt for taking your skateboard outside the gate.
Yeah. Like, oh man, you went outside the fence.
And then I remember there was a big time when Mom was upset about you being hit and Dad hitting you. See, the funny thing is this: Dad never touched me.
Right.
I think you were the first boy, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you got that brunt of
I did, of the mistakes of parenting. Yeah. I don't hold my dad accountable for this stuff.
Right.
He was doing the best that he could. Mm-hmm. And he passed away in 2005, obviously, of cancer. And, I had a lot of salty feelings about that throughout my whole life. Honestly, I really think that was a trigger for my whole life, honestly. Like, I had like daddy issues, like because he just betrayed me. Right. Basically, you're worthless because I don't want to participate in the religion. And if you remember, he always told us that it's always your choice and you always have the choice. But then when I actually made the choice, that wasn't the choice.
Yeah.
So
I think that was a trick.
It was
a lot of religions use that trick.
It was a trick.
They say you can leave whenever you want, but if you do, you're going to hell.
It was definitely a trick. So I'll say that there was a lot of anger over that because I felt betrayed by my dad, who I looked up to. Even though I didn't like what he did, I loved the way he was a disciplinarian. He was a hard worker. He helped me develop my work ethic. He helped me just being a hard worker. Like we were young, doing physical labor, super young, 8, 9, 10 years old. We were running saws and cutting stuff. Like we were doing like hard work at a young age. Yeah. And I love that, and I don't regret that. And I'm glad that happened to me because I'm not built like most people these days. Yeah. Because we were raised in a different way. So do I disagree with it? No. But at the same time, and then Mom was always the trying to like jump in and save it and calm it down and whatever. And me and now remember, Dad would never really get elevated. Mm-mm. He always stayed like level and he was cool. But during these moments,
I remember he did.
It was another level. Yeah. He went up and he got super angry. And I think the reason why, and this is interesting, I think the reason why is that I was his firstborn son, for one, and he had all his eggs in my basket. Right. And that he was hoping that I was going to follow in the path.
And you were named after him.
Right. And I'm a junior, and that exactly. And we had all that going there. And then what happened? I failed him, I guess. And so did I fail? I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say that I failed because I don't know where my life would be right now if I would have took the other path and kind of played it out through the religion. Who knows? And who knows how that would have landed for me. You know what I mean? Like, looking back now, I don't regret the mistakes that I made. I regret the things that happened and if it affected people in a negative way because I care about my ripples and how I affect other people, definitely. And I have remorse over that. Right. But the learning that I learned from each one of the mistakes and the problems and the issues. So I don't know if you remember, but I used to like jump the fence and go hang out with neighbor kids. And I was getting into, we lived in West Jordan back in the day, close to Kearns on that Kearns border right there on 6200 South. And I got in with the wrong crowd of kids. Right. They were like drinking, smoking weed, doing stuff like that. And I fell in with those kids. And then what you're saying about going to a junior high, there's a period here where I was so naive, like ridiculously naive. Like just go be in this like sect religion that you only see this certain thing inside this bubble. and then you go outside of it like a baby.
Exactly.
You're like a baby.
Yeah, you have no clue.
You're like 12 years old, but you're like a baby. Like you know nothing about anything. You've never really seen TV very much. You haven't been exposed to media. You haven't been exposed to really anything.
Right.
So the world obviously is a monster and it will gobble you up very quickly, especially if you don't have resilience or abilities to like defend yourself mentally, physically, whatever. And I did, and I fell victim to a lot of things, and I got trapped in a lot of things, and I got hooked up with, you know, a bad set of friends that were all into drugs, and it's not like hard drugs. They were doing like marijuana and doing mushrooms and drinking and things like that. But that's kind of like where things kind of went sideways. And then I was feeling more family from my friend's mom and their family, Austin, than my own.
Yeah.
Because I was ostracized at my house and I didn't really fit in. And not only that, there was a part of me too that kind of listened to what Dad said. He didn't want me to corrupt everyone else or like influence any of the rest of you, which I get that. And I understand looking back now, like I get it. But do I agree with it 100%? It's 50-50. I really don't know.
Well, it's a certain level of abandonment.
Right.
Right? Like they're there.
They're there.
Both your parents are there.
They're there.
But they're not.
Well, and I'll say for Dad specifically, when he said that to me, that I'm not his son anymore, he was dead serious. And for reals, that's how he acted since that point, ever since. Like he never reversed that. He never walked it back. He never apologized for it, nothing. Mom was always the champion and trying to like keep me close as she could, as close as she could. And the story that I always say is basically I left my house at 12 because that's really what happened.
Right.
Because was I in and out here and there? Yeah, I was, but I was in DT. I got arrested very young.
So when was the first time, like, talk to me about that, right? Like, so you obviously kind of like, you're basically rebelling against your parents.
Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah.
But you, like, it's not, I would say, I would classify your rebellion was not the typical teenager rebellion. No. It went way, way more
to another level.
So talk to me about the first time you really like what did you get into that started causing the arrests and like all that stuff?
Well, which was very young, and it wasn't very shortly after that time, probably about 6 months. I was still living at the house, and it was very tumultuous. I was basically running away as much as I could. Like I would go run away in the day, or I would run away at night, or whatever. Look, and I don't know why I did the stuff that I did. I think it was more for shock value than anything. Like just to wrinkle the feathers as much as I could.
Wouldn't you say it's also like really like looking at it now, it's also kind of a cry for help?
It was a cry for help. Yeah.
It's a hand raise, right?
It was a hand raise for a juvenile that young.
Yeah.
Right? Like I didn't know how. I was trying to do something that was so whatever that it would get them to accept me or bring me back or try to coddle me or something.
It's like, how can I get their attention? Get their attention this time.
I think that's kind of a lot, and I've never thought of it that way. Maybe it was a cry for attention to try to get, the parents to come back into the fold or whatever. Mom was always there, but she could only do so much because Dad was the disciplinarian and he wasn't having none of it. So,
well, I also think, Doyle, that like our parents, they weren't trained like on how they didn't have great coping mechanisms themselves.
No, they didn't.
Right? Like dad suffered with alcoholism his whole life, right?
He was good at hiding
He suffered with addiction. He hid his feelings. So I would say my argument is he didn't even know how to give you what you needed.
No.
Right?
Definitely not.
And so you were searching for it in some way, right? And unfortunately it got you in like really bad situation because you got arrested and put in juvenile.
And I always am going to say this. No matter what my parents did wrong, no matter what circumstances I had that were wrong, I made the choices.
Right.
And I am responsible for those choices.
Exactly.
Whether our parents made mistakes or they did not make mistakes, I take full ownership for every single thing I ever did, 100%, because my whole life now is built on ownership and accountability. Right. I take ownership and I think about the way, whatever I do, what is that going to ripple? How's that going to affect somebody else in a negative way or a positive way? And my goal is to affect as many things as I can positively now.
And that really is a huge message for the Cheat Codes podcast is, and the book and the program, everything. It's saying, hey, regardless of what happened to you, right? Whatever.
I'm not a victim.
Whatever your
I don't have that
capacity
mindset
of your parents were or whatever it was, at some point you have to start taking accountability for what you're doing.
Accountability, yeah.
Right.
100%.
So with you though, specifically, you went through a lot to get there.
Yeah.
A lot.
Well, the first incident was a neighbor house down the street. I liked alcohol and I had only used it a few times.
You like 14?
No, I was young. It was
13?
young. 12.
12.
12.
Oh, geez.
12 years old.
Okay.
12 years old, and I wanted some alcohol. I knew my friend had some alcohol. His dad had alcohol. So that's what I did. They had the window open. I just went in there and took some alcohol. I mean, man, but little did I know that was a second-degree felony to do that. So I didn't know that at the time. I was a naive 12-year-old, just out the religion kid, didn't know nothing about it. And I got cracked immediately, like within 20 minutes, like so fast, like super quick. Now, here's the thing. It was swift justice. I went to DT, which was a detention center back then, which was long, long ago, way back. And I was in DT for I think it was 2 nights from what I remember.
Okay.
Now, that was traumatizing because I was so green to everything and didn't understand anything. And like, it was a shock. Like, I was in a cell, like the whole 9, like in a cell. It was a juvenile detention. I was in there by myself, in a cell by myself, locked in there, which was just crazy hard to deal with mentally, emotionally, whatever. It wasn't an easy time. And then the kids that were there were like hardened kids, man. So now here's the other thing is that I was very weak, like mentally then. Like, I didn't know really how to handle any of this because it was just so much like,
right.
Which
I would say, I would argue that most of us, if I had to go spend a night in jail, dude, it would be hard.
It'd be hard.
It'd be hard.
Difficult.
It's hard for anyone, right?
And I think that my mental capacity back then was very limited. I didn't have a lot of, trauma or anything to like toughen me up or make me stronger. And a lot of people look at trauma in a way like, oh, it's such a bad thing. No, I don't look at it like that. I look at it like this. No, that sharpened me up. I'm sorry. So next time that something like that comes in my life, I can deal with it. Hopefully that never happens again. But whatever. So I like to look at it like a gas gauge. Like, are you all the way, full, or are you like half or a quarter? But the gas gauge is how much you can take, how much you can deal with, how many things you can handle. And I never understood this back then, but I understand it now, is that every one of these times and these things sharpen my ability to be able to handle. It's an opportunity. It's not a bad thing. I do not take the victim role or the victim mindset, because that's what ended me up in prison. And that's why I used drugs. And that was my excuse to use drugs, because I blamed everything on other people. My life, my family, my parents, my dad doesn't love me. I was in this cult religion, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Just the big old crybaby, most people use that are struggling. Sure. They're using those things, but that's not the problem. You have to understand that no matter what, no one's making you do anything. You're in choice all the time.
Right.
So whatever you are actually doing with your actions is really what you're doing that. The trauma's not making you do that. Yes, does it trigger you and make you angry and upset and frustrated, so you want to go hit the bottle or you want to go smoke that joint or do whatever you want to do? Cool. I totally understand that. I get it.
So basically what you're explaining is when those things hit you, if we don't have a way to cope,
right,
we find a cope.
Yes.
We drink.
And it was my cope.
We do the drugs. We do this. We break the rules, right? I know you just were. So, and the problem is we just stay in that cycle.
Yes.
We just do it over and over and over and
I
over
did it
again.
for 20
plus years. Right?
Yeah. So from 12 to 20 till 12 years old all the way up to 29 years old is a complete wipe.
Just
total
repeating.
Wipe. Total wipe. Of just the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, just churning.
Yep, the same thing. And I think that the more that I kind of like got into the lifestyle of that, the more I started like thinking it was me, thinking that that's who I am, and
it's just who you are.
It's just who I am. It's just what I just what I do. Yeah, and now here's the thing. This was me selling drugs, petty theft type of stuff, there was no violence ever along those lines, especially along the young years. That there was nothing like that. But I think as time went on, there was a lot of violence my way, that getting jumped, or there was a million things that happened, bad drug deals that went wrong. I mean, I could give you a plethora of things that went sideways and made me learn some hard lessons. But I think that that my life went the way that it did because I kind of got. It was almost I went from one matrix to the next. So I went from a cult religion, total indoctrination, to another indoctrination of like street life. Like, and that was my family. But here's the thing is like, I ran away and I was living with my friend's parents' house and going to a public school, which was crazy weird because once again, I was completely unprepared for junior high. Had no idea how to operate in a public school setting. It was just so different. There was all these cliques of kids and different things and, getting in fights and whatever. Now, here's the thing is I was a small kid. When I was young, 12 years old, 14 years old, 13 years old, I was just I was such a waif. I was such a little kid. And I had a big heart and a big mouth. And I've always been very out front with how I feel about things, even when I shouldn't necessarily. Which I think as my older, in these older years, I've been able to understand that I need to have measure and coolness and not react to things. So that's one of the things that I was back then. I think I was a massive reactionary and I would react to anything. So if you came at me with something, I'm going to come back 100 times harder, whatever, sideways, completely like shock the person to like silence. Like they don't want no more of that. And I think that my entire life, all that from 12 to 29 was just reactionary, complete reactionaryism, that no forethought to anything. I would just do it. Whatever my friends were doing, I would do it with them. And I had a lot of friends, and I think I grew up kind of being alone, where I really didn't have parents at all, and I kind of like governed my own self, really. The family was around. Mom was always talking to me on the phone, but it was so distant and it was hit and miss. And sometimes I'd be like, I want to clean up and I'm going to get clean and I'll come stay at the house. And Mom would work that out with Dad and I would come and hang out for a few months and then I'd be gone again and off to DT or whatever.
Well, so you bring up a good point because one of the things I teach in my program is like when we don't develop properly, we deal with stuff in our younger years, we wall off those emotions. We don't know how to access them. And so we go to those, like we want it. We want love from our parents. We want love from ourselves, but for some reason we can't access it.
Right.
And so we use things, break rules, use things to pacify ourselves. Yeah. Right.
I think it was a lot of immediate gratification.
Yeah, like what can get me this thing right now?
Right.
So
didn't have money. Now, as you know, we grew up very poor, super poor.
Yeah.
Super poor. It's probably why we got shoe fetishes and all the other things we have now, because we didn't get but new shoes.
Yeah.
The kids would get hand-me-downs and we never had money. So our view of money from the beginning was wrong. It was lack of, and it was wrong.
Yeah.
And that messed us up. And I think our whole life was chasing money.
Yeah.
And obviously selling drugs and stuff like that, it kind of makes you feel like a rock star in a sense, because you have everybody's trying to get a hold of you. All these people want to be around you and whatever, and you got money. And so
it's like this major validation you weren't getting at home.
Right, exactly. So selling drugs was a big way that
popular guy.
It made me very popular.
Money, everything.
Yeah, and in school, right? Yeah. But also at the same time, it put me in a lot of bad situations that I definitely wasn't prepared for. Right. So I wasn't prepared for those situations, and I had to learn the hard way.
I remember visiting you in juvenile detention, and I want to say you were like 15 or 16, and it was out at the point of the mountain where the prison was.
Yeah,
in Salt Lake.
So that was a little further down the road.
Right. But I remember you telling me, you said, I don't want to do this anymore because then I'll be over the fence at the prison.
And I hinted to go there. Yeah.
Let's move forward a little bit.
Okay.
When you turned 18.
Yeah. Well, 17 is when I got.
17 is when it happened.
Sent to prison. Yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay. So 17.
So I got certified as an adult at 17.
You decided to steal a car, right?
Right. Okay. And I drove down to. This is weird. Okay. So this is a crazy story. It makes no sense. Zero at all. There's no rhyme to reason to none of this. because it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I was 17 years old. I was drunk beyond comprehension. I think I was high on weed too at the same time, cannabis. And I was out of it, obviously. And I was 17. I was unable to get my license because it was always getting revoked. I was always suspended because I always had possession charges like marijuana or something like that. So I was never able to get my license when I was 16.
Right.
So I decided to steal a car, which I did, and I drove down to Colorado City. Why would I do that? I drove down there for who knows what reason, and I had a bottle of vodka, and I was driving down there at 120 miles an hour to go see Donna. Which was crazy. It doesn't make any sense. But then I get to Colorado City, and the police come, they knew I was there. Donna knew or whatever, and somebody called the police. I don't know who. But anyways, I went on a high-speed chase.
So for people really quickly, Donna, it was our other mother.
Yeah.
And she was living in Colorado City, which is a larger section of the polygamous group that we were a part of down in southern Utah.
Yep. Which makes no sense. I don't understand what prompted me to run down there or go down there. Mm-hmm. I always had a good relationship with Donna. I don't know why I went down there. I'll never understand it. I don't know.
Interesting.
But then the police, which was our uncle at the time, Uncle James, and a bunch of other family members were police down there in Colorado City, and they were chasing me down to Hurricane. So all the way from Colorado City down that crazy canyon at 120 miles an hour. And right when you come out of that road, when you get out of the road there coming out of that canyon and it comes up that little bump going into Hurricane, I literally ramped the car because I was going like $120 and I ramped the car. And then when it hit the ground, it skidded out of the way and it just went crazy and I rolled it. And so I rolled it, it ejected me, and then that was...
So lucky you're not dead.
Yeah, lucky I'm not dead. I mean, this is one of 300 times of these kind of incidences that I have no idea how I didn't die, which, we could talk about that all day long of how many times did I not die? Yeah. It's just unbelievable, but I do believe there's a reason for that. Mm-hmm. And I know it for a fact in my heart that now the person that I am today and the person that I've been for the last 10 years, 20 years really, I got sober when I was 29. So what am I, 46? So it's almost 20 years, 3 more years and 20 years of time of where I've turned my life around. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying, I all the people that I've positively affected since I've been out and been able to change their lives and help them, just what I'm giving to the community, being an upstanding citizen, being all these things. Yeah. I just think that there's something for me that I need to be here for.
For sure, 100%.
Or otherwise I would have been gone. So they arrested me, put me in jail then, and then here's what they sentenced me, which is just crazy. They sentenced me to prison for that young. Mm. It just now the reason why is because my juvenile record was so lengthy. Right. They're just like, this kid's never going to get it. So what they did is they sent me to a thing called a 90-day evaluation, which is they don't sentence you to prison yet. You go to the 90-day evaluation at the prison, which is in a lockdown unit in the prison, and you're there. And what they do is you go to these classes and do all this stuff, and then they evaluate whether you should go to prison or not. Okay. And from whatever happened, that program didn't work out too well, and they ended up sentencing me to prison.
So more bucking authority, probably, right?
And I really wasn't. I don't think I was being... I followed along with the program. I was trying to get out. It's not like I was trying to not get out. I was. I don't know what happened, man. I'll say this, this is crazy part too, which I don't know if Mom remembers this, but they had her get up on the stand and give her little thing, and she said that I needed a little whooping. So I don't think she remembers this, but she kind of got me cracked.
Hey, dude. Hey, in all honesty, though, do you blame her?
No,
because at that time, because they were out of control.
Yeah, they were at their wits' end. Yeah, they didn't know what to do with me, and you know what? I don't blame her. I don't blame Mom. Like I said, I hold no resentment towards my family. I hold no resentment towards Mom. I hold no resentment towards anyone, because resentment will kill you. And I know because I had it in my gut my whole life. And I know exactly how that ball of hatred and meanness and anger feels, and I don't like it. I don't want nothing to do with it. So the best thing that I ever did was release that.
Yeah.
Totally release it.
Well, my experience with you at that time, dude, was all I can say is you were just so unpredictable.
That's which was intentional.
Yeah, but you just never like that was the uncomfortable part about it. You just didn't know what you were going to do.
Yeah.
And I can see why, our parents were kind of like, well, freak, man, what you're lucky you didn't die. You could have hit someone, right? There's
a million things.
Tons of things that could have happened. So she's like, yeah, put him in jail.
Yeah. I honestly, I think mom was just scared. She was in a courtroom. She'd never been in that kind of experience before. And she was kind of under the gun and she was nervous. I just don't think she knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not she had anything to do with it or not, but the judge sentenced me to prison. I go to prison, and the very first time I did 19 months, which wasn't very long, but I went to the YOP, which was the Youth Offender Program, which was at the 288 site, which is the one that was closest to the freeway, the flat units. That used to be, so they called it 288, which was 288 guys. They had 4 stars there, and it was wide open and had a big track in the middle. And they tore it down now, which is a glorious sight. Goodbye, horrible place.
Memories.
Yeah, see you later. It's nice to see it gone.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it's not there anymore. But anyways, that yard was all youth offenders, 288, all kids under 25. Some of them were 14, 16 that were in there for like murders and, I mean, seriously, gangbanger kids that were really, I mean, it was a rough yard.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that was a learning curve for me.
I would imagine.
So going to public school, and then I dropped out in high school, and then going to prison shortly thereafter, man, I grew up super quick, man. Super quick. Like real quick. And all the kids were like trying to show out and be tough, and they were all had their little gangs and whatever. And I never fell into that side of it.
Do you feel like you're saying the 288, the younger people? Do you feel like that, like, because you have a comparison of some more harsh prison experiences?
Yes.
Would you say that one was less like what we see on TV? Or was it?
It was more like exactly like what you see on TV. So this was so the prison did a lot of changing over the years. Back then, it was wide open movement, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night. You had to lock down at 11 and 4 for counts, and then 8:30 stand-up count. Stand-up count is a welfare check. So basically, you have to take your shirt off and stand up and put your hands up and turn around. You're inside your cell during count, and then the cops come around and they check you to see if you have any bruises, black eyes, to see if you got in a fight. Because a lot of the times fights happen and they don't see them or don't know what's happening. And then, they want to make sure. So this is their thing. They want to make sure you're safe, right? Well, whatever. I mean, that's what they say. But whenever the government says it's for my safety, then I'm going to question them because they're liars. So
there's a theme here. So in that stint, was there, what are some of the moments that kind of stand out for you? Things that
I will say, the very first day. Oh man, this is just crazy time. I didn't understand how the phones work. And the initial part, you have to be in it's like a transitionary period. It's 8 weeks, can be up to 12. And you come in and you're locked down 23 hours a day. You get out an hour a day. And what they're doing is they're putting you into the system. And they're seeing where you're going to go, where you kind of rank security-wise, all these. They go back in your history and they look at your whole life and they kind of see. Anyways, you go through this initial part, and then they put you out in the yard, which is what happened. And then I went to the yard, and I'll tell you, I walked in with my stuff, which is a bedroll and some sheets and my underwear and whatever few items they give you. I swear to you, man, the second I walked in there, it was like everyone was looking at me, like older dudes, Now, remember, it was a YOP, but they had older inmates as well. It wasn't all kids.
Okay.
But it was, it was a mix. Some of them were solid youth offender, and some of them had mixture between regular inmates and the youth offenders. But anyways, I was in a mixture unit, where half of it was older guys that had been there for a long time, and then the newer kids that were 25 and under. But I went in there anyways. I hadn't been able to use the phone. So I obviously wanted to call home, right? It's been like 3 months of time, and I hadn't been able to use the phone, just be using letters. So I went down to use the phone, and that got me in a major problem. So I actually got in a fist fight the very first day because I didn't understand how the phones work. Like,
how do they work?
Well, there's time, but I don't know that.
Okay.
Like, you have a certain time that you can get on it, and you have to like check with this dude, which like the tier boss or whatever, you know,
this is like the internal. This is not the prison rules.
Yeah, it's not prison rules. This is internal yard rules. So I get into it with this dude that's been down for like 15 years for murder. He's an older dude. I think he was probably like, I don't know, 35, 36 at the time. But yeah, that didn't go too well for me, right? So I never had fought in a cell, didn't know how to like maneuver or whatever. I did my best, man, but I got whooped.
Okay.
So it is what it is. No big deal. I got whooped a lot. I got whooped a lot during that first initial part because I just didn't know how to fight. I mean, obviously, I didn't grow up fighting very much. I mean, yeah, in my childhood from like in my teen years, yeah, I got in some fights, some scraps, a couple here and there.
I think everyone's
got a little scrap.
Well, yes, but I think when you talk about prison fights,
it's different
versus just the normal world.
They're going to kick
fight.
your head in real
right.
good.
It's a big difference. And I think anyone that goes in there is going to have to learn something,
which you do.
How you do it. Right.
So I took that. Now here's the cool part. This is the one good thing that I did that I didn't know that I was doing good is I bucked up and bucked back quick.
Well,
and
you've been showing that your whole life.
No, and so my natural ability to buck back saved me.
Right.
Instead of being like, oh no, I don't want to fight. Oh, I'm scared like that. It wasn't like that. It was like, what's up? Let's get it. Let's roll. Let's do it. And then the guys saw me, these people that were there already, they're like, dude, that was stand up. Like, yeah, that's how you do it. You got to stand up for yourself. That's awesome. So that really like brought me a lot of credibility to start. Even though I got whooped, it doesn't matter. It's just I stood up for myself. And I even said that I wanted to call my home. I just got out of R&O and I want to call my family. And then the dude was actually being cool about it after the fact. It's just I didn't follow the rules, and he had rules that he has to go by. So that had to happen.
So talk about that a little bit because you've told me other stories, and it's like people have to enforce the rules.
Well, there's two sets of rules.
Okay.
There's two sets of rules. There's the rules that the cops have,
right,
which are the institutional rules, and then there's a whole nother set of rules that are for the inmates.
But for the inmates, yeah. So doesn't that guy kind of have to get at you because he has to keep his credibility?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So I took his time, basically. So I took something from him. So prison,
even if he wasn't going to use it, it's a visual thing.
Right. And prison is all about bartering because we don't have money.
Right.
So there's no way to trade money. So how do you do it? You barter time or the gym or noodles or whatever.
So he had to get at you just out of principle.
He had to get out. It was just principle thing.
Right.
And he actually felt bad about it because he knew I was young, and they call you a fish. That's what you're called. You're a fish. If you're a fish, that means you're new. It means you've never been to prison before. You're green and you're new. In other words, you're a target.
Right.
Could be. You could be a target. Now, here's what happened. I had a friend of mine. His name is Buzz. He's an old school dude that's been down for 25 years. Back in them days, he's been down for a long time. And he kind of took me under his wing and kind of showed me the ropes, you know, taught me about stuff. We learned about a lot of things. He told me that you don't do this, you don't do that. And then obviously prison's very racial. A lot of people don't know that. It's extremely racial. It just is. It's just automatically racial. I don't know why it is, but it is. But he explained all the rules of that and how that works. Don't gamble with theists. Don't do that. Don't play these, all these kind of things. Don't owe people money. Don't get in debt. All these kind of things that kind of helped me understand a little bit. And then obviously I met my friend Jeff, who's still my friend to this day. He's doing really well. He's got a car audio business.
Nice.
He's been out for like 10 years.
Wow.
He's got two.
So you met him then?
Yeah.
So he was in for quite some time.
Yeah, he actually went to the feds. He went in three or four times, and he actually went to the feds later on and did 10 too.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
So similar
path. We actually fell around the same time on the last time. And it's about almost the exact carbon copy.
Wow.
Exactly the same. But he did the same thing as me. He got sober. So that's the difference between a lot of my friends that I know that are like dead.
So they get out, they
just keep
sober,
doing the same thing. They don't
stay in
they
that
never
cycle.
get clean. That's the problem, is they never get sober. And we I don't know if we don't want to warp that far down the timeline here, but we can talk about that later. But
yeah, right.
20 years of sobriety is why I'm here.
Right.
20 years of sobriety. And I got clean when I was 29 years old, and I've been clean ever since.
Right.
So it's not exactly 20 years, but it's almost pretty close. To me, in my mind, it is. I haven't had a drink. My last crime was in 2005, and here we are. I did 10 years, 7.5 in Nevada, and then another 3.5 years over here to finish that up. It was a long road, man. And I'm not proud of none of the stuff, and things got crazy out of control. But like I said, it all surrounded around drugs. It all had to do with drugs all the time. That's all it was around, is drugs and doing more drugs and getting money and whatever.
And the need to do drugs came from...
Right, trying to fill that hole.
Filling that hole.
Right. And I think that my chase of trying to fill that hole didn't end. And it never really did. And I really didn't even really deal with it until I was probably, I don't know, in my mid-30s. I think I really started understanding, hold on a second. This is an attachment to grief that I still have that I need to get rid of. Right. Like, I've got to stop this. Like, it's like a ball and chain that I'm dragging around me. I'm telling you, man, since I changed my mindset with this, it's like I'm light as a feather. Mm-hmm. It's like nothing ever happened. Yep. Like, it's no big deal. Like, a lot of people that have gone through things that I've gone through, they just can't get over it, man. Right. They can't. Now, to be fair, I still struggle with sleeping, and I have flashbacks of these traumatic events that happen. And I know we don't want to warp forward in the timeline too far, but there's so many things that happen that people just wouldn't even believe it if you say it. Mm-hmm. Like, they won't believe it. We could let's take one, I guess. I'm trying to think of one that comes in your mind, or a time that you remember. Well, it helps jog my memory.
Yeah.
Too.
So here's the thing. So I remember when you got out after that first 19 months.
Yeah.
And
I stayed out for a while.
You did, and you actually
months.
shared a bedroom with me.
Yeah.
And I remember you were going to Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. Yeah. Dude, I think at that time everybody was just kind of like, all right, he's gonna straighten out.
I really was now. So I'll say, when I got out from that first initial time, I stayed clean and sober for like 15 months.
Yeah.
I was out for 29 months, and I stayed clean and sober for like 15 months.
So what happened? You met her.
Jeff got out.
You met her.
Yeah.
You guys hit it off, whatever, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
And you ended up getting married.
Yeah.
And you had your daughter.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Aubriana.
Yep. While I was in prison. She was born while I was in prison, okay. And so was Kayla.
So you got you got out, you met this girl.
She was pregnant when I was going in.
You married her.
Yeah.
She got pregnant. And then what happened? Because I remember you moved into an apartment with her.
Yeah, we did.
What happened?
Everything was cool. I was sober. I wasn't drinking. Nothing. Everything was cool. We had an apartment. We had brand new furniture. I had a brand new car. I had a good job.
Yeah.
Everything was moving along just fine. And then one of my friends got out, and I bumped into him at the mall, and he'd just only been out a few days. And I knew I was super sketch, and I was very nervous to talk to him or call him or whatever. Because back then, what was it? Freaking flip phones. I can't even remember. Like a pager. Like a pager. Like weird. But anyways, no, he gave me his number, and I actually ghosted it for a while. It was a couple weeks, maybe a month. And then he reached out. He's like, hey, let me come over and see your house, and what's up? And he came over, and then he just threw it on me. Like, I had never done meth before back then. Never did it. And he's like, hey, let's go over here to my friend's house and whatever. And then one thing led to another, and then we started running around. And then I started using, and the whole thing went whoop, super, super quick down the hole. Yeah, so from that 15 months all the way up until I actually got arrested that time, the second time, which was operation of a clandestine lab. And that's the other part, is I fell in with people that were cooking dope, and that, we were selling dope, cooking dope, all that kind of stuff. And it was just bad trajectory, man. And I mean, the stuff that happened that time was just insanity. I like, looking back, it's just, Like, the pain. Like, I learned so much from everything.
Okay.
That's the way I look at it back. I don't want to look at it with a negative connotation.
Right.
Obviously, I wish it never happened. If I could reverse it, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I want the stuff that I learned from it.
There's value in it.
Yeah, because I learned a lot about myself through that process.
So you got introduced to meth. You never done it before. You did it, and it was just shot you through the moon, right?
Yep.
Whatever.
Yep.
And then you decide, hey, I'm going to start cooking it.
Well, yeah, it kind of was just one thing after another.
Okay.
It was just a successive climb. I'm selling it, I'm holding it. And then back in those days, cooking meth was kind of like a big thing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people were doing it back then. Because you could get the chemicals and all that stuff easy and whatever. It was a way different time. I think this was in the 90s, like 98-ish or somewhere around there. So back in those days, it was much different environment, and meth was the drug, man.
Yeah.
That was the drug back then. Like everybody was doing meth. And then I just fell in with the wrong kind of people and ended up getting caught with a lab, and that's that.
So you were an offender. You had a record.
Yep.
You got
I was
caught.
on parole.
You were on parole, and you
parole.
got caught.
Yes.
With this lab.
Yeah.
So you got sent back for.
It was
I thought it was
4.5, 5
okay.
time, 4.5, 5 years that time.
And that was all done in Salt Lake City.
All
right?
here in Utah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I didn't do a program. I could have done the whole program back then, but I didn't. I was too ingrained in the mindset. You know, I was in my early 20s, young. Didn't really. But to be fair, though, I did kind of want to do the family thing. There was a part of me that did want to get out of it, and stop doing it. But when I went back in the second time, I made more friends and new friends and more different kinds of friends, and then I got out and it was the same thing again, just all these friends and all the stuff from the past. I just never would get away from it because I just kept keeping my hands in it. And then not only that, I wasn't staying sober.
Right. It's incredible to me because I used to think back when I was drinking heavily, the thought of like stopping.
Yeah.
I was like, my life's going to be so boring. What am I going to do? This and that. When I stopped and I got away from it, I got away from those people. I got away from that crowd, all that. Now I don't run into I don't even hardly come across people that drink really. You get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And so it's the same for you, right? Like, it's like you were in that crowd and it seemed like they were everywhere.
Yeah. It's hard. So this is what I'll say about that. Everyone can do what they want. It's their own choice, and that's free to live their life the way they want. And I'm totally fine with that. I know a lot of people that are like responsible drinkers.
Yeah.
That are family members, that are good people, that do it how it should be done. I should say that it's not like this chronic disease. You're using it every single day as a crutch. They're doing it socially in family gatherings, whatever. And I'm fine with that. But the part that I don't like is around people that use it every single day.
Right.
That's all they do. That's all they think about. It consumes their life. That right there, I am like way off from that.
Well,
like I can't jive with it.
I believe that you're on a vibration, dude.
Right.
And you were on a vibration of the meth.
I was on the low
community.
Vibration, definitely. I was operating in the low chakra.
You were magnetic to them.
Yeah.
They were around you. It was constant, right?
You know what I'll say, which is a very interesting thing. You attract what you are.
Right.
Okay? So if you're a low vibe person, you're going to attract more low vibe people, and you're going to vibrate on the same level. It's so true. And I think that my vibration now is like shooing those people away.
Yeah, it doesn't come around.
No,
you
they
anymore,
won't
right?
come around me because they just don't jive with me.
Yeah, because I remember you in those times, and I remember like thinking like, gosh, you just can't get away from it.
No,
you know?
I couldn't.
And I remember thinking, I'm like, I'm never around anyone that's getting arrested. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like, it's this, and I really do believe once you're conscious of the vibration that you're on,
Yeah.
then
Totally.
you're like, oh, and when you
Totally.
when you change your vibration, it's all of a sudden like now this new group of people comes around you.
It's crazy, man.
It's incredible, dude.
It is incredible.
Yeah.
I agree. It's
And
one of the
it's
most amazing things ever.
It's such a powerful tool, but if you don't, if you're so, I feel like when you're on a low vibration, you're blind to the higher vibration.
Here's the other thing, and this is probably something you would remember. Y'all were trying to like talk me out of whatever at the time. Mom, dad, you, everyone was trying to like, oh, Doyle, come on, let's go to be. I couldn't hear you.
You couldn't even hear
I couldn't even hear you.
Exactly.
There wasn't, every word you said was like foreign language
nothing.
to me.
Yeah.
It meant nothing. Like I couldn't hear it. But like but like now, and it's the same thing for me, is if I'm talking to someone that cannot see it, they're so stuck in the pit, they're down in the barrel, they can't see nothing. I have an ability to get down there with them and to be able to get them out of it.
Yeah.
Because I've been there. Now, this is with someone, let's just say anybody that would like to do that. Right? Because I have tons of examples of that. But I'm just saying that it's so crazy to me that, and it makes me see that back then I just couldn't hear the words.
Right, exactly.
I couldn't hear the message.
Yeah. And that's kind of the purpose of like having you on, is because it's a powerful message and it resonates with people.
Right.
Right? Like, because there's so much more to this. And honestly, we're going to have a part 2 because we don't have enough time today, but there's so much more. And the reason I say this is that everybody's journey is different. And if you can talk to people who, hey, they've dealt with some issues with the law and stuff like that. It's like, how do you get out of that? What do you do? Is it even possible? Because I feel like at one point you felt like you're so far gone, you can't come back.
Right.
And I
that's
think
how I felt.
All the family was worried about it.
That's literally how
when
I
you
felt.
got out of prison for the final time.
Yeah.
Everybody was like,
still nervous.
What is he going to do? What is he going to do? Is he going to be good? Is he not?
Well, just like I've explained to you, that it took me years to build up the trust with the family again, like literally about 3 years of time. Yeah. And then now, 5 years down the road, now we're pushing close to 10 years.
How long have you been out?
It was 2015, July 15th, 2015. 2015? Yep.
So it's 9 years.
9 years. 10 years. Next year will be my 10. Yeah.
You've been out for 10, coming up on 10 years.
Coming up on 10 years.
No running with the law, non-parole, no issues. You're upstanding citizen.
Yeah, but CEO of a chemical manufacturing company for the last 8.5 years. I have a great life, bought my own house, nice car, the whole nine, man. Savings, everything. Yeah. Like the whole life's different.
Dude, what I love is like we really boiled down this whole conversation into a frequency.
Right.
And saying like, hey, what am I vibrating on? Who am I attracting?
Yes.
What am I around? And the only way you can get out of it is to raise your vibration.
Yes.
That's the only way.
I do wish that there was like some magic button that I could talk to people that are so fixed mindset and they don't actually see anything else. They're in the victim mentality. They're in the I'm not feeling good enough. Because there's so many people that I would love to be able to like, hey, all you got to do is like change your mindset, change your lifestyle, change your habits, and then all of a sudden your whole life is different. And you have no regrets and you feel no shame, nothing. Right. You're just totally cool. Yeah. Like everything's good. Like nothing ever happened. Yeah. Like it's awesome. Like amazing. Like if I look back and just started like drilling down into all my trauma, trust me, man, I'll go in the pit. Yeah. That's a sad thing. Right. There's so many bad things that happened. Like we didn't even get into any of the items. There's some really traumatic things that happened. But I have nothing about it. Well, I'm totally cool with it.
I think that's there's different avenues in which people hear something, right?
Right.
And so like again, I've written a book. I'm trying to do a podcast. I'm trying to do a program, and it will reach some people, but others will not hear it, and they may hear something else. They may hear something you say, right? But I think that when you get to a certain level of understanding of yourself, you feel this need to try and help other people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because you have felt how
that's all I want to do is help other people.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because I don't want people to suffer, especially people that I know.
And to not give up.
And not give up. Don't suffer and don't give up because you can change it. Yeah. Because I'm telling you, if somebody like me can do what I've done in my life to the level that I have, and I'm still climbing, like we ain't done yet. Like it's far from over. Yeah. Like I'm going to the stratosphere. Yeah. I would say I'm in the middle.
Okay.
Like of my success. Like we're right there. Like I have way more to go, many more doors to open up. But I'm saying if I can do it, somebody that's been in prison 6 times, 20 years of their life, from a very young age can turn it around, then anybody could turn it around. Anybody can. Yeah. There's no excuse.
I fully
the one main thing that I will say is that the first step for anybody, if you want to change your life, is to get sober. straight up. If you're struggling with drugs and alcohol, if that's your vice or that's the thing that's like hanging you up, because some people it's different and maybe it's not drugs and alcohol. But I'm just saying, getting sober was the thing that actually helped me to start being on a higher vibration. And then the other thing that I did is completely cut off all friends. They're gone. The only reason that I mentioned Jeff is because Jeff is a phenomenal individual and he's done almost a carbon copy of what I've done. His vibration's so high, he's been sober for like 20 years. He's got 2 twin boys that are freaking awesome, man. They look just like him. He loves them and he's a great dad. He's a coach of a football team. He's killing it, man. He's living his best life, man. I'm so proud of him.
Yeah.
Like he's got his own business, his kids, the whole thing. So to have, and listen, we hang out once in a blue moon. But we're so busy with our lives because the success that we have, we're busy. Like we have a lot of things going on, and so does he. So, but to have a win, like see 2 wins come out of that group of people that we were back then, it's really good. But all my other friends, man, sorry, I can't say that for them. Yeah. Half of them are dead, and the rest of them are still using drugs or in prison. Yeah,
and they'll stay in that cycle. Unfortunately,
yeah, it's sad, and I hope they break it.
Yeah. I really do. And that's the purpose, right? Like to spread the word, spread the message, spread the stories.
Yeah.
Because I find value in my story, even though it was tough. I find value in your story. It's tough. It was hard to go through for you, but
it was hard to go through for you to watch it.
Well, I mean, it's a ripple effect.
Yeah, man, definitely.
It's a massive
That's what I talk
effect,
about all
right?
the time is the ripples. The ripples are terrible.
Because it's not only you're affecting everyone around you, right? I suffering with alcoholism, and then I have a son. So it's
there's some key points in your book that you talk about of some of the stuff that gone on when we were younger.
Yeah,
and we've even had some conversations recently about rectifying those things and understanding I was just an idiot, just doing things, just being this obstinate, instigator of dissension of some kind of whatever, right? Which is not the vibration that I'm on now. I'm always on. We live a different way. And look at the change that you've made and the sobriety that you have.
Exactly.
And the difference that you were, because I seen you struggling when I was just not too long back, what was it, 7 years? 7 years, yeah. And look at that length of sobriety that you got.
Yeah, when you got out of prison, I was in
you were in the throes of depths. Oh, man, it was bad. Yes. I was worried for you.
Yeah, I mean,
and that was hard to see at the time. But actually, what's weird is I actually got a little bit of the ripple in the reverse. As opposed
you saw
to
someone struggling, and you're like, "What can I do?"
Yeah, man. It was hard. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The things we've gone through, man. Definitely,
it's wild.
Yeah.
Well, look, man. We're gonna have to have a part 2 of this. We didn't even get to the meat of the stories. Doyle's got some crazy stories. We're gonna have you on again, but I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, brother.
Here to spread the good message.
Yeah.
thecheatcodes.com. You can pick up my book. I know Doyle's going to be working on some stuff and we'll soon be able to share that with you guys. But I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, and we will see you again next time.
Thank you.